Ms. Anna Grabow, welcome back to the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
It's so good to see you again. I just figured we just pressed a chord and get back into it. Anna was a guest about a year ago. You can look her up. We recorded sometime in June of last year, but just really honored that you're back. Tell us about what you've been up to. How are you? How's everything going?
Yes, I'm doing really well. I feel like I've had a lot more speaking opportunities since we last spoke, and I've even developed a whole new branch to my business as well. So
yeah, I know a little bit about that. You're going to have to tell us about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So everything's been growing. I've had more people that I've gotten to help. And I've also been studying more. I did a lot of spirituality growth since we last spoke. And then I also got to work with bigger companies and help them with all of their sales and marketing. So I feel like things have just sort of like gone crazy, and it's been really exciting. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's always fun to have old guests come back and I'm doing this in the second season of the podcast to try to figure out, what have they learned? Let's go deeper, which is why I don't want to kind of create this long-winded intro. I just want to kind of get into it.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start there. Let's just kind of talk about what has the last year been like for you? What have been the biggest lessons? Let's kind of unpack some things. And in the first episodes, we talked about a lot about manifestation and being confident and finding your purpose and some like really quality topics. And maybe we get a little deeper today about some practical things and what you're experiencing with your clients and what you're learning. So let's just kind of go wherever it goes.
I love it. Well, something that came to mind is that I feel like last time we spoke, I was really just focused on what I did know, and I was just really trying to grow that. But I've really become aware of listening to other people and learning from them over the past year, really seeing what's worked for them, what sort of blind spots they have, and really trying to listen to my own mentors when they were telling me what was holding me back. And something that I really realized I needed to work on was that I really got into this idea of energy work and spirituality and manifestation, but I also wasn't valuing some of the skills that I did have that were not as spiritual, certain things that many people struggled with. And I think that a lot of people actually undervalue what they have to offer. And that's something that a lot of people really struggle with. But as soon as they start to see how they can help people in a way that they didn't even realize they were already doing, that's when they can really start to make more of an impact. So that's really a big theme I've been looking at, is what sorts of skills have we all developed that maybe we haven't even realized are so valuable, but the moment you really see them for what they are and then you start presenting them to people, you can start helping more people and feel more purposeful.
So what are we talking about? What do you mean?
Okay, so for me specifically, I don't know if we went into all of this history last time, but I went to work for a sales team at the beginning of 2021.
I think I remember that, yes.
Yes. And so in 4 weeks, I did $200,000 of sales, and it was crazy. My first time ever selling something. But for me, it was like, oh, great, that was cool. I did it. Next thing. And then, I worked with the CEO of a marketing agency, and I helped him. I watched as we grew, companies from $1 million a year to over 10 million a year. And again, I was really enjoying what I was learning, but I wasn't always stopping to see the things that I brought to the table for all of it. So I was also hired as the head of marketing for a coach, and I did all of that. But really what I love is working with individuals and lots of people at the same time, not just seeing one vision. And so for me, the main thing was I have skills in how to present myself and how to help people present themselves as well. Like how you put together an offer so that something is really appealing to others, and you don't just say, hey, I teach this topic and I'd love to have you there, but instead you know how to talk about something in a way where people are excited to be a part of it. And that's something that I naturally just always enjoyed doing, but a lot of people struggle with that. And so the more that I leaned into it, the more fun I get to have helping them with something that I like doing. So yeah.
I love that. And you're launching a new part of your platform or your business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in May, we're starting a mastermind where I'm really working with 3 people at a time and helping them to get their first big sales, which really just comes down to honing their offers and understanding how to get it in front of people, being confident doing that. And we've already sold out the first month. So we're looking at the next month of June now. But it's, it's just really exciting what happens when you really look at the things that you've been working on for so long. And then you say, you know what, I can actually help a lot of people with this. And the more that we all support each other, I think everyone grows at the same time. So that's what I love.
What's transitioning and showing up for you? What is manifesting for you in a way that you didn't expect?
Yes, great question. I think I've been realizing that because life feels a little different in a positive way, right? My business is growing. My fiance just started a new business. He's now a realtor in Beverly Hills. And so he's now in this whole new world where he's showing $15 million homes for the first time. And so it's so crazy because our life has shifted so much. And so I think that there's naturally a little bit of that, not fear or anxiety, but almost like confusion. Like I don't recognize what this looks like every day. But I've realized it's just because it's new. And so anything that's changed can feel a little uncomfortable. But I keep just telling myself, this is what I've wanted. I've wanted change. I've wanted growth. So that's what we're doing here,
Let's stay with this because this is really big for me right now. I feel like there's a lot of, and I'm sure people can relate to this, is that we're all meant for change. And I just did a post on this the other day about like, we're all meant for change. And some of us appreciate or enjoy change more than others. But there's this like middle ground from where you were to where you're going, which we call like, let's call it the swamp. Or like quicksand or whatever, that you're in the middle of while you're changing or while you're kind of going through the process of these changes, where you feel like, you said you were not feeling this, but like fear or anxiety, but like, is this right? Am I on the right track? Do I enjoy this? Do I belong here?
Right.
Am I making the right choices? We call that swamp. And so I feel like I'm in the swamp in a lot of ways right now.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, like some parts of your life, you're always in the swamp because that's just what it takes to keep up leveling.
Yeah.
But identifying, and I'm working through this, so I'm kind of talking to myself as I talk about this out loud, is just identifying it is step one, instead of feeling like, oh man, this sucks. Like I want to revert back to where I was. Let's talk about this because I mean, not only are you going through that now, you've experienced this, but also just let's talk about it from chasing our purpose or looking for something bigger or, stepping up, right? Calling people up. And so let's just talk about this for a minute.
Beautiful. So I think that in the past, I used to think that the minute that I was pursuing what I felt was my purpose, that it would just feel wonderful and magical. But there are so many nuances and layers as far as pursuing what you want to do that, like you said, it can feel like this swamp because all of a sudden you're in a whole new territory. And so there's so much to learn and uncover. And it really just feels all of a sudden like now you're starting, right? It was like before, we've gone through swamps before, we've, had goals and reached them. But I think that when you really go after some bigger vision that's larger than life, it's not just, oh, I want to, have this one goal happen. I want to get on a podcast. I want to, sell a book, whatever it is. When it's a bigger, larger than life goal of wanting to have a leadership role in the world or learn and grow and be the best version of yourself, you are constantly putting yourself in new situations where you're brave and you put yourself out there. But now it's not so much just the act of being brave and putting yourself out there that feels uncomfortable. Now it's all of a sudden being seen in a different light and people coming to you for things and people wanting to learn from you. And just having these new responsibilities that comes with, embodying a newer version of yourself that you don't even expect to be there. You expect to always feel like yourself, but now there's a new feeling. So I think that when we go after our purpose, it's exciting. It's the best thing you can do. And also just to know that I think the journey is part of it, because as we're in this swamp now, this is where we really figure out what actually matters, what matters most to us. It's not about, fame or glory or being someone for someone else. It's all about who do we become? What choices do we make? What do we learn from it,
Yeah. And you kind of said it where like you sometimes you don't get what you think you want. And so you stay in the swamp longer too, because you're like, oh man, the process of setting up this program or this mastermind or this business or whatever it is harder than I want. I don't know if I want to do it, and you're in the swamp. Then you launch it, and if you have success, you're through the swamp. But sometimes you don't have success. Sometimes it doesn't sell. Sometimes you're 5 years losing money in the business or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And so you stay longer in the swamp than you want. And I think there was a really great, I don't know if it was a post or a podcast I was listening to about, like, it's harder to get to greatness from good than it is to get from, like, a really, really bad situation to good. Because once you're at good, you've kind of like, you're very satisfied, you're comfortable.
Yes.
And when you're not in a good place, your back's against the wall. So there's not really much place to go. And this can be argued, and we can have a long day conversation about this. But when you're constantly up leveling and you're looking for your next level or you're looking for your next challenge, sometimes you can stay in the muck for a long time because you're comfortable now. You don't necessarily have to get into the muck.
Yes. And I think that was a big thing that I was allowing myself to do. A lot of people do it where you stay in a certain level of muck for a long time because you get used to the feeling of the challenge, and it's fun to like rise above the muck and what's the next thing you're focusing on. But really, I realized the bridge was standing there the whole time. All I had to do was step out. It was waiting, but I was still just going through the motions because it felt productive. But then I realized, wait a second, I'm actually ready for the next thing. And now I'm in a whole new terrain. So now the work really starts of like, wow, I need to be honest with myself, not just always feel productive or like I'm growing, but actually being honest with myself about every single goal, every long-term thing. We have a family friend we recently met who he was very successful in business, has many businesses, very, very, very wealthy. But what he's doing right now is he is traveling to Ukraine and helping to build homes for people during the war effort, even though he is such a wealthy businessman. And so this also makes me stop and think, wait a second, what am I doing as well? First of all, what's the point of growing in all of this wealth? And then is it to be able to then go out and do bigger projects for people? And then how does all that come together? So I think that it's very exciting that we have all of this room to grow, but you're so right, because when you are in survival mode, you have to make things work. But then once you're in that space where you're comfortable, where things are not, emergency status all of the time, where you can pay your bills and you're happy and you're healthy, that's when it's really hard to get yourself to want to be great. When you are super wealthy in a business, what makes you want to go out there and then give back to the world? All these levels of, growth and philanthropy, there's so much out there. So we get to choose.
What are entrepreneurs struggling with right now? What do you feel like people are asking you to talk about? And what are they dealing with?
The people in my audience are really struggling with putting themselves out there and seeing the offer that they can give to someone else, because they've only been in learning mode all of this time, right? They're learning, but now it's time for them to go out there and teach, and they want to do that. But there's this transition between, okay, yes, we're all growing and learning, but then you also have to own some of the things that you have learned to be willing to teach others. And I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is being willing to really be confident in the things that you do know and brave enough to put yourself out there and say, yes, I do know these things and I'm willing to help you with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we can get stuck in learning for sure.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people that I've been talking to are in that space. I also like working with a lot of new people, because for me, that was such an exciting time and also very confusing. So I really like to see a lot of people, even if they have no idea what they want to do, but I just know that everyone has some sort of life experience, something that they've been through that is valuable for others. And usually it's not always exactly what they see. They think it's this job that they've had or this skill, but there's some people who've had just very interesting life experiences, maybe they understand how to have, a child with autism or something. And these things are so valuable that so many people would love help with. So you really get to look at all of the things you've experienced and how you could help someone.
What's the biggest limiting thought or obstacle that they have when they're thinking about all this stuff? Like, is it that they don't feel confident in the lessons that they have, or that maybe nobody else wants to know what I know? Who am I? Am I worthy enough to be teaching people? Like, what's the limiting belief there that's showing up for people?
I think there's a lot of them all at once, but sometimes it starts with, can I even succeed at this? Like, is it worth it for me to put my time into even trying? Once they get past that, then it's, do I have anything worth saying? Does anyone care? Do they want to know this? Then it's, am I being, too forward by asking people to hear about my events? There are all these different things that come up, but I think it really just starts with, if someone wants to do something big and incredible and they want to grow their own business, in the beginning, they really think, am I going to fail? Is this going to be a waste of my time and energy? And then once they've committed to doing it, then they get into all the other things of how they're presenting themselves and all of those things.
One of the things we talked about last time was purpose. We talked a ton about purpose. How has your purpose evolved? Did it evolve? And should it evolve?
Love it. Yes. So before, I really was focused on my purpose being connecting to my highest self and understanding the greatest version of who I want to be. But what I've realized now is my purpose is meshing that together with this world that we live in, because it's one thing to have a beautiful ideal of what I want to create, but then it's another thing to almost jump in like an avatar into this body and have like a vehicle to do things. And so I really used to just focus on, this big idea, but now I'm like, okay, this is my vehicle, my tool to actually make things happen. So it's really marrying the two and thinking about how I can play a character of a business person, a partner, a friend, but also affect change in the way I want and still be able to create some sort of positive difference in people's lives. Even if they don't even know me and I just pass by them on the street, I try and exude some sort of positive energy. And then I get that knowing in myself that I'm somehow contributing in a positive way, but it's really marrying all of that together.
How do you think about time when it comes to all this? Like, Are you pretty present when it comes to deploying your purpose? Are you thinking highly about the future of what world you're trying to create and what that world would look like? Tell me about how time comes into how is time a factor in this discussion?
Yeah. So for me, it feels like the future is coming towards me very quickly. It doesn't feel so much like I'm trying to focus on it in a distant place. It feels like I see it coming towards me and I see the opportunities coming. So I'm trying to prepare myself to be ready for them. I'm trying to get everything in order so that as the tracks kind of move towards me, I'm able to get myself over them in a way that I want to and that I feel good about. So I do feel that there is a lot of future focus, but it feels very nearby. It feels very much like I'm focused on the present moment as much as I can and trying to encompass it as well as I can, because I know that the next steps are just around the corner and they keep coming as well, which is exciting, but it just means that it's very much the mode of focusing on what's right here, looking a bit ahead and then focusing on that,
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I've really been trying to work on recently is like learning how to ask better questions. And I don't mean like ask better questions in terms of like, how do I get a better answer? But like, is that a good quality question? And is that question serving me? And should I be asking a different question? And I think a lot about this regarding purpose and regarding mission and where are we going and why are we doing what we're doing? How do you think about these things, and what are good or better questions we could be asking ourselves to help create some clarity or potentially more foundation even in our purpose?
Yes.
To make sure that we're just not convincing ourselves that that's what we're doing because that's always what we've done, or that's what other people want me to do, or I feel confident about this. And sometimes you should question that even. Like, I've always done it this way and this is what I want to do. Like, well, are you sure? So like, what are some healthy questions to be asking yourself? Let's kind of stay focused on purpose for a minute, and then maybe we can go somewhere else.
I love that. And I think this is a great question. So I think that everyone needs to start with just focusing on themselves first, because once they sort of have found a level of security and confidence in their purpose and in what they want, then they can focus on bigger scale things. But in the beginning, if you are feeling lost about what you're doing in your life, you have to just start by asking yourself, okay, what's going on in my life right now? Let me just take an inventory. What does my life look like? What do I like about it? What don't I like about it? And just being very honest really about the way you feel about it, because in the beginning, you don't know what's right or wrong for you. You just know how you feel. And so pay attention to the things that feel good. And then you can say, okay, why does this feel good? What would I like more of? And if it's freedom of some sort, connection, we all want the same things. Usually it's connection, love, freedom, happiness, joy, right? And so really just paying attention to how you can create those things. And once you've asked the right questions, you get to that place. And that's when you can then start asking bigger questions of how you could do something for others. But you have to save yourself first before you can start to help others, I think.
Yeah, we're so trained to suppress our feelings, especially as entrepreneurs. I feel like there's just a programming that you start to become you just become more resilient or more numb to emotion and feeling, because you have to make so many challenging decisions so frequently. And so if you're always sensitive to your feelings, like, it doesn't serve you as an entrepreneur sometimes. But in these circumstances, like, you really need to lean into what you're feeling and letting that lead the conversation. It's very clear that that's true.
I love that you said that, because I've come from the opposite angle of it, where I've always been too emotional. And so everything that my mentors have told me is, be less emotional about this, think more logically, that will bring you ahead. So what's really interesting is that for me, that was the thing that always held me back, was I was always too emotional about everything. And so once I started using the logic and turning off certain receptors, then I was able to move forward more in business. But I do think that there are so many benefits to having those emotions being a part of the conversation as entrepreneurs move forward, because you definitely need your logic when dealing with certain structures, issues that come up. But when it comes to the long-term goal of your life, the direction, you don't want to just do that with your head and with, what numbers, what metrics do I want to reach? You want to do that with your emotions and your heart first, and then use your logic to get you through each piece.
Have you heard of the spiral dynamics, the 8-stage spiral of development? Okay, so this is actually a really interesting thing. I don't know if, AJ, we can put this into our links or somehow attach it in the conversation so people can understand, or you can just maybe Google the spiral dynamics. I was talking to a coach many years ago about this, because I was feeling at a place where I was not feeling the compassion that I thought I should be feeling. And as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you're dealing with employees or team members or clients or whatever, and you have challenging situations, and we're all human. And so there's human interaction that happens where you feel like you need to be having some compassion or some emotion, and you just don't feel that.
Wow.
And this coach was using this framework called spiral dynamics, that sort of your emotional fitness evolves over time as you kind of change. I won't say you elevate, but you change into different roles. And sometimes compassion is a challenging emotion to have as an entrepreneur, because it's really hard to make good decisions when you're always emotional. So anyways, I didn't mean to take it off you. I just wanted to give that a framework, because it was really interesting. I was sort of punishing myself in the entrepreneurial seat, that why am I not able to connect with these people? And it wasn't that I wasn't able to connect. It's just that my emotional, the dynamic of my emotion at that time, in my role or in my seat or what have you, had evolved to a place where I had to make myself less sensitive to those things in order to evolve. And I think that that's true in a lot of ways, but anyways, just an interesting framework. It's a really good framework for people to learn about, like, where are they at? And it's a really cool, colorful framework. But
I love that.
anyways.
I'm glad you said it, because I think I've had a little bit of fear about losing that connection to my emotions, because I've always lived in emotions 100%, for better or for worse. And so I've been feeling as well that in certain situations, I don't have that same place that I normally come from emotionally. And there's been a little fear of, is there something wrong with this, to feel less compassionate or connected to these feelings all the time, but to really be thinking more logically. It's a little strange for me, but it's also helped me. So it's cool that you're saying it.
Yeah, if you're managing that many people and you're trying to lead that many people, you almost have to be a little bit less sensitive, because you have so many emotions and so many people. And if you're sensitive to all of it, then you pretty much become immobilized.
Right.
And so I think you are evolving in that emotional fitness to allow you to continue to move forward. Not that everyone is upset or that you're discouraging people, but that in order for you to continue to lead and make good decisions, you have to not let everything bear on you.
Yeah.
And then we judge ourselves for that, like you just said. And so just to understand that that's normal, I think is something really important for people to hear and understand, that this is a normal evolution in your own, leadership, in your own, maybe even you, Anna, right? It's like, you're evolving too. We're all evolving. Yeah. Fun. Really, really fun.
I love it. It's so perfect that you said that, because I was having this exact conversation with myself before we started, of that same feeling of just, this is different. I'm not feeling the same level of emotion in certain things. So again, it's the things I've wanted for so long. And then when they're here, because they feel different, there's always that question of, is something right? So
yeah, absolutely. We talked a lot about manifestation last time too.
Yeah, we did.
And the powers of the universe. And maybe perhaps that's been a big evolution for you in, like, shifting some of these frameworks into more applicable frameworks for your clients or for yourself.
Yeah.
Where's that showing up for you now?
Well, I think that...
And for the record, the laws of the universe haven't changed since we've been for a year. It's just our understandings and utilization of them. But go ahead.
Exactly. Well, I think that, like you said, the foundation is always there. I'm always aware of what sorts of things I'm bringing into my realm, right? Because I know that whatever we focus on expands. If I'm thinking in a certain way, I will get more thoughts in that same way. So, if I'm ever feeling discouraged about something, I always pause and I always stop, because I know that I'm just going to get more discouragement if I keep going in that direction. So I always do things like take time in nature, stop, drink tea, always sort of reset and pause. And then, meditation really is a big thing for me that helps, because when I'm doing it, it's not so much even just that I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. Now I'm so aware of it, of like, I know what it feels like to feel disconnected from all the things that don't matter again, and reconnecting with just existing. And then once I'm sort of in that reset place, then I can come back and make decisions from a logical place or from whatever I need. But I think that's what it really is. It's like, it's not just so much a matter of, I have these dreams, I want to manifest them, so I think positive thoughts. It's really a matter of, I have to reset myself to neutral in order to be able to create whatever I want, instead of getting dragged down by things that really don't exist or don't matter. And then also being open to being inspired by new things, right? Because if I'm more of a clean slate and I meet someone new or I hear a new idea, I'm more receptive to really hearing what they have to say. If I'm not, thinking about all my own thoughts.
Yeah.
So it helps in that way too, where you can absorb more, you can learn more, and it helps you grow quicker, I think.
How do you do that? How do you get all the thoughts and sweep them away?
Well, for me, it's almost like a physical sensation, where there is this concept of shunya, which means like nothingness or zero. And so it's this idea of zero-ness, right? And so for me, I go to that place where I feel into just closing my eyes and breathing, and I'm just going to be zero. I'm just going to be nothingness right now. I am no one. I'm nobody. The energy inside of me, I'm not even just who I say I am or my ego. Whatever is the thing that's alive about me is just energy, and everything is energy. And so then I remember that the idea that I am a separate person is just an idea. And so it's not that it really is 100% neutral, but for a few seconds or minutes, I can remember that it's all just energy, right? I'm not a separate human being, completely separate from everyone else. And once I remember that again, that's when I really feel connected to everything. And I also feel like I'm not as swayed by all the different things that were in my mind before, because I remember it's a choice.
You just become super present to the energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you say none? What's it called?
Shunya.
Shunya. Where does that come from?
It's Sanskrit, and it basically means zero, nothingness. It's a concept that a lot of yogis use for that, clean slate. And so I have a yogi teacher from India, and she helps me with that. She's trained me in a lot of things like angel communication, things like that, because I think it's very fascinating. But this is really the main place that you're able to be there for people on a spiritual level, is by getting to that clean slate. But I really do think it applies to business as well, because then you're able to really choose how you want to interact with people.
Yeah, we did a podcast talking about the same thing. I can't remember exactly who it was. It was the framework of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And similar, just bottom line, we're talking about meditating into nothing, which is kind of getting super, super present in your connection to energy, and becoming beyond yourself, out of your body, no body, no mind, no self. And I think that, so how do you do that instantly? Are you doing that over a period of like a 20-minute meditation? Are you just closing your eyes and breathing to it? What is your practice for that?
Nowadays, I can do it pretty instantly, but it's taken so much practice. It's really been asking myself, okay, let me go to zero now. Let me go to zero. And so you can be anywhere. You can be showering, eating, and all of a sudden you just practice it. Like, let me just go to zero. And the more that you do that, the easier it is to drop everything and just exist and allow yourself to be blank for a second and just remember that everything is made of the same energy. That's something I love about Dr. Joe Dispenza, is he's really taken science into it and used more of a scientific vocabulary so that more people are open to it. The way that I learned it was just through a spiritual lens, but it's the same practice. It's just
same practice.
Different words. Yeah, exactly.
No, I know. And you're totally right on that. So if anyone thinks me and Anna are being a little woo-woo, you can pick up Joe Dispenza's book and he'll maybe explain some science to you. Intellectual folks that want to understand more scientific approach of what's happening with energy and at the cellular level or even at the atom level. But I think that's really important. I think as leaders, we have a lot of things that happen on outside of us. And so to have a practice that helps us kind of come back to neutral, I think the way you said that was really beautiful, is like, how can you come back to neutral, not get triggered, know you're making clear decisions, clean decisions without, a red wagon of old garbage, just kind of clean slate. And I think that's a super important practice.
Yeah, I think if you look at people you really admire in history as well, right? Like, let's just take Abraham Lincoln. Everyone seems to admire everything he's done. If you think about him and the decisions he had to make every day, what if he was held back by something his father said when he was 5 years old, right? Or a way that he felt when he was a teenager? It's like he wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that he did. So when I think about people in that way, I think, well, of course we want to go to neutral and let go of these things that clearly are not going to serve us in the future. So I think that entrepreneurs can think of it from the sense of, it's not so much that it's about my energy or the way I feel, it's that I can't be the leader I want to be unless I let go of the things that have nothing to do with me. It was my story that I had, but truly it's not part of my story in the future,
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love that you're like crushing it and on to the next level. What else is happening?
Oh goodness, what else is happening? Well, we want to buy a place. We're engaged, so we're getting married in 2 years. We have a lot of stuff going on in our lives right now, but it is all good. And I was recently in Europe visiting my grandparents who are in their late 80s. So again, it was just really getting to be present and be grateful that we are all alive and healthy, and just these things that when you're in the survival mode of life, you don't always get to experience, but because we've been dedicated to growing past that and trying to build, we now have more space to spend time with loved ones. And it's just this whole new level of really learning as we're going, but also trying to appreciate at the same time. And I think that the whole world is ready for that. I think that even people who are in struggle and survival mode, they know what they deserve, they know what they're capable of. And I think that's why so many people have turned online as well, because the information is here, it is available. And so I think it's just a matter of time before everyone really starts to get on the same level, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk more about that, because I feel like you hit it right on the head. I think we're at a season in the world, in communities and governments and politics and just geopolitics, where we have to turn a page here. I was going to ask you actually, right before we said that, is like, do you listen to the news? Because I feel like you're such a clean energy.
Oh, thank you.
And you're so like clear in what you want. And I think there's something to be said about like isolating yourself and staying pure in the information you allow in. But then you were alluding to something beyond in society right now. So I thought I'd ask.
Thank you. No, so I am always aware of the news because I ask my partner to tell it to me from what he gets from it. Because if I listen to it, I get so much energy drain. So I have to do a lot of work to just get myself back to feeling neutral again. So of course I do hear it if it's being played in the house, but my favorite thing is just hearing the most important pieces, because then I can hear it from a more neutral space, understand what's going on. But that is something that I think I'm ready for the next level as well. I used to not want to know anything that was going on because I just wanted to choose what I wanted to put into the world. But I think a lot of people, myself included, are ready to now start tackling what's actually going on. Right. Like I mentioned, we have this family friend who's actually in a war zone building homes for people. And it really makes you look at yourself like, wow, what are we doing to help each other? Yep. What's going on in the world right now? What do we all have as far as values? I mean, I feel like a lot of the world, we want to try and protect values that we have, and we want to try and help places that don't have those freedoms or values, and we want to give them the same freedoms. So, there's a lot going on for sure. Yes.
I love that. What's keeping you up at night?
That's a good question. I've been sleeping well lately. I would say what keeps me up is knowing that I'm really doing the best that I can in everything. I think that sometimes I can say, oh, shoot, I could have done better at this one thing. And that can keep me up, because if I know I could have done better, it's easy for me to think about it. But I think another practice that we can all have is, of course, forgiving, understanding, accepting, saying, now I know about this thing, I'll do it better next time. But I think a lot of us are hard on ourselves for making mistakes, especially as entrepreneurs, because we expect ourselves to be these brilliant, know everything people who can just take on the world. And yes, a lot of entrepreneurs do that, but it's through the mistakes that we can get even better, right? Maybe we wouldn't have made this little mistake, but it'll keep us from making a big one later because we had this learning lesson right now,
I asked you this before in the last episode, but for you, what does it mean to live a rich life?
Yes, for me, to live a rich life means that I am feeling so much gratitude and love and happiness and freedom, and that the people around me feel the same way, and that the more people I meet, the more people get to feel that way as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
So good to see you again. When are we going to do this again?
Whenever you want, just let me know. We will do it again. It's always so fun to chat with you. I love the questions you ask, and you always manage to ask some of the ones that I've been thinking about. So you're psychic or something.
We're all one. We're all the same.
We are. We're all one.
Just reflecting back.
That's right. That's absolutely
Well,
right.
so it's really fun for me to do this too, and I'm really enjoying the second season where we get to bring in guests from the past and go deeper into some topics and what they're struggling with and what they're working on. And so, we're bringing back the people that people were listening to the most.
Yeah.
So if people want to hear somebody, just send us a note or whatever. But so I just really appreciate you being here. Really honor you for the work that you're doing on yourself and in your community and for others, and just keep fighting the good fight.
You know it. Thank you so much.
Girl. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Lovely to see you.
You too.